Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Tim here for Droid Life yet again, bringing you more coverage of the G7 from LG. Last week we went over the first 10 things we think you should do with the G7 once you finally get it in your hands. But this time we want to make you the ultimate G7 Pro. And to do that, we're going to go over all the tips and tricks that we can come up with to really help you get to know the LG G7. So LG built a lot of stuff into this phone, so we're just going to have to dive right into it. This is 20 plus tips and tricks for the LG G7. Alright, so the first thing we're going to want to dive into is the display. Yes, it has a notch, but that is not what we're going to be talking about. If you dive into the settings menu here and head down into display, there are a ton of options, of course, that you can do to not just kind of customize the display, but customize the overall look of the device. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the screen resolution. Of course, it does come with a Quad HD Plus display, and that's 3120 by 1440. And now you can actually change the resolution yourself if you want to set it to medium, 2340 by 1080, or all the way down to low, which is 1560 by 720. Of course, this will affect kind of what you see on the phone. Say you're streaming YouTube and you set a video quality to 1080p when you've got it down to 720, you may not see full resolution or what the video is capable of displaying. But what you can do is kind of ultimately possibly affect your battery life by doing this. Obviously, if you're lowering the resolution, the battery doesn't have to work so hard to pump all those pixels and power them, and same with the processor. If the processor has less workload, you should see better battery life moving along. But if you don't need all those pixels, that's a good way to just trim it down a little bit. Also, the inside this display menu, you've got a font option. Now, LG does bake in a few fonts. You've got this LG Smart Font, which looks a lot like Roboto. You've got Kind, Gothic, Friend, Travel, Yo-Yo. But I've downloaded this Star Wars font, and you can actually add your own fonts from the LG kind of Smart World application that's preloaded on the phone. And to do that, you just select it. You'll get a nice little preview here. You can change with the size and all that. It's all up to user preference, and then you can just apply. And once that's applied, you can see my font has changed up, and that's through all of your applications, that's through all of your settings menus and all of that. So everything's changed whenever you change that font. For right now, for the sake of everyone's eyes, I'll change it back to Roboto, but as soon as I'm done, I assure you I will go back to the Star Wars font. Down here, I want to highlight screen color. So screen color, I have mine set to expert. Not that I'm an expert in screen technology or anything, but I found a nice little kind of middle ground in terms of saturation and contrast and color temperature. So out of the box, it's going to come with auto. And what's really nice is that LG is giving you kind of this moving image up here. Not really a video, it's more like a very fancy GIF. Anyway, gives you some colors and some range, some lights and blues. It's going to give you an idea of what to expect when you have one of these set. So again, out of the box with auto, but you can set it to eco, which kind of seems to lower the brightness a little bit. Cinema, which adds sort of a yellow sepia tone. It's kind of underlying. I don't know if you can catch it on video, but to the human eye, it comes off rather yellow. Change it to sports, which comes off pretty blue. Game just kind of darkens, maybe ups the contrast a little bit. What I've done is I've gone to expert. I've messed with my color temperature, not a lot. I think when it is set to expert, it's a bit on the cooler side, but I've got mine set right there in the middle. Seems like the perfect little bit. You can mess with the RGB values yourself, and then this little gear here when you're inside of the expert setting, you can actually customize the saturation levels, hue levels, sharpness, and add a color filter. So just something that LG is allowing the user to do. There was a big controversy with the Pixel 2 XL and the use of the OLED panel that LG had. So with this one, LG has gone back to the LCD. And at least we're getting a lot of customization options, right? If you want it a bit cooler, you can do that. If you want it warmer, that's totally fine too. So back down into the display, we also have to highlight the home touch buttons. Now you can change the color, and we're talking about these buttons down here, of course. You can change the color, and all that's fine and dandy. I just leave mine set to white because it's going to match whatever is with the app, right? It's basically an auto color. But more importantly, you can actually change up your button combination. So let's say you don't want your average back, home, recent apps buttons, and you want to add like a notification pull down button, your Q slide, capture plus, and all that. You've got your different options here. You can basically just hold, swipe, and place them wherever you want them to be. You can arrange them, you can put the back button over here, etc. You can just change it all up, and so what that does is add that button down there now. So you don't have to apply those changes, they just take place automatically once you go back home. You can just click on that, there's your notifications, just as they usually would be. And yeah, if that's something you want to change up, by all means, feel free to do so. Moving on, we have got the also in the display settings, if you scroll down a little bit, you have something called mini view. So with mini view, let's say a lot of people don't have large hands, or they can only use one hand at a time. Mini view is going to allow you to swipe on the home buttons, the navigation buttons down low, and shrink your display a little bit. So to shrink the screen for use with one hand, swipe left or right across the back, home, and overview buttons. So you can either enable it, disable it. I have it enabled, and I just give it a swipe. And I will say sometimes it doesn't work that great, but yeah, if you give it a swipe over there on the back button towards the right, it'll shrink the display. And of course now my phone is totally usable, just as it always is. I can also resize it a little bit, but then I can also just back out of it by clicking the X, and I'm back to full size. Next up, I wanted to talk about multi-window from the recent apps button. So down here on the bottom right, of course, you have your recent apps. You can scroll through those, see everything you got going on. But here in the top right of these windows, you're going to see this little two rectangular boxes sort of connected. That makes it a square. And so what you can do is you can actually tap on one of these, and what it's going to do is going to throw that into a multi-window view. And if you continue scrolling down through your recent apps, you'll find other applications that you can open up through the multi-window function. Now, not all apps are supported by this, but when you do come across two that are supported, you can multitask, obviously. So say I've got my Kendrick Lamar going on Spotify, but I also want to read through Twitter or read through emails on Gmail. I can totally do that just fine. Now with this center line right here, you can drag an app up or down depending on what size you want each one to be. If I'm scrolling through my timeline and I still want to see more YouTube than timeline on Twitter, then I can just I can customize that however I see fit. And then of course, if I can just tap on that recent apps menu button again to continue scrolling through other apps that I may want to multi-window, or I can just long press and get out of it and just have one app just take over the whole UI. Of course, click home, just go right back to home. Since we're here on the home screen, let's talk about customizing this home screen up a little bit. Now, this is LG's custom launcher, and of course I would recommend downloading Nova or Action Launcher, or basically any other launcher app that you can find. Anything on Google Play might possibly be better than LG's UX home here. But anyway, inside of the home screen menu here, you got home screen settings, and then of course you can change up your wallpaper, change up the swipe effect to a breeze or panorama, and they give you a nice little preview of what that animation is going to look like, which is just all right. But more importantly here, let's say if I'm on the home screen and I give it a swipe to the right, I can choose to have Smart Bulletin or Google Now. Now, Smart Bulletin is LG's sort of custom way of doing things the smart way, if that makes any sense at all. But so you have shortcuts basically for your music app, and that is the standard LG Music app. You can't control your Spotify, Google Play Music, or anything like that. Kind of a downer, I know, but at least it's there. If you load on your own music, say via your SD card or anything to play through the standard music application that LG provides, you'll be able to control it. LG Health, you can set your own basic fitness goals or anything like that. Pocket briefing, context awareness, which we'll get into here in a little bit, and your pocket advisor. Of course, these things are customizable via the gear in the top right. You can enable, disable. You can also download other ones from the LG Smart World application that comes preloaded on there. Now, like I said, let's go ahead and long press on the home screen. Again, it's not that great of a launcher just because it takes so long to load, but so right here under the layout, you'll see that left home screen, Smart Bulletin or Google Feed. I, of course, opt for the Google Feed because I want to be able to give it a quick swipe to the right and have access to all my Google Now, my news, my weather, my sports teams, and all that good stuff. Yeah, so it's really up to you however you want to customize that. Going down here, we're going to head into the sound section. And then if we scroll down a little bit more, I wanted to talk about the blink LED. A lot of times people say, oh man, can you or does the phone actually have an LED? And yes, it most certainly does. That question seems to get asked about every single phone. So actually, if we back out of sound, excuse me, it wasn't in sound, it's actually in apps and notifications. And under notifications, there it is. Under notifications, you'll see the blink LED. So say you don't like your LED going off, or you do want the LED, you want to ensure that LED is going off whenever you're getting notifications in, you can simply just enable it like that. And whenever you get notifications in, the blink LED will go off. All right, since we're talking about customizing notifications and all of that, let's go ahead and talk about the haptic feedback, aka the vibration of the phone, the motor inside that gives you that feedback whenever you're clicking things, or let's say a notification comes in and it's buzzing on the table. So you can actually customize that quite a bit. So if you head down into the sound menu from the overall settings menu, and then scroll down a little bit, you'll see vibration and vibration strength, type, vibrate on tap, etc. So vibration strength on an incoming call, you can have it set to blast, notifications set to blast. When I vibrate on tap, I do like to have a little bit of haptic feedback when I'm pressing things on the display. I don't want the tap, to like be irking in my hand or anything like that. So I set that one a little bit lower. Of course, you can up it as much as you want. These aren't on sort of gradual presets or anything like that. It's a full range, 0 to 100. So it's all up to you. And every time you drop it or click it on a certain spot, it's actually going to vibrate in your hand and let you know just how hard or how soft the vibrate is going to be. As for the vibration type, whenever you're using an LG ringtone, there's a certain vibration that'll coincide along with the actual ringtone. You can change that to sort of a rapid, and again, it's going to give you the vibration in your hand to let you know what it's going to feel like. Tick tock, where it's like tick tock, tick tock, and it's all up to you. So it's nice that you can actually customize that stuff. A lot of phones, they don't allow you to customize the haptic feedback or the vibration strength and all that stuff. And the G7, a lot of people ask, it does have a pretty good haptic feedback. It doesn't sound too plasticky or anything. It's a solid vibration motor. So definitely a good thing to know. Since we're talking about that, let's go ahead and dive right into the sound. So, of course, on this phone, you've got your HiFi Quad DAC, you've got your DTS:X surround sound audio and all that. So, when you, let's say, pull down on the notification tab, and you have a option here in your system toggles for DTS:X 3D surround, you can long press on that so long as you have some headphones. So we will go ahead and plug those in real quick. I did go over this in the first 10 things you should do, but just in case, let's go over it one more time. So the DTS:X 3D surround is going to give you a bit more of an immersive audio experience, let's say, and you can have a side-to-side profile, front profile, and a wide profile. I opt for the side-to-side. It just seems to be a bit more kind of surround, actually, and a bit more immersive. Let's say I'm listening to my rock music or something. It sounds really good. And when I say immersive, like, I mean it. And these are not fancy. These are just those AKG buds that come with a Samsung Galaxy phone, and they make them sound pretty darn good. And you couple that with the HiFi Quad DAC, and again, in the system toggle pull down here, you got HiFi Quad DAC. We can long press on that. The phone sounds killer. Whether you've got some good headphones or even the Bluetooth, whatever headset you have, it can sound pretty darn good. So we do have DTS:X 3D surround enabled, same with the HiFi Quad DAC. You can add a digital filter for sharp, slow, or short, and that's just going to change the overall sound kind of value a little bit. But then you can also balance it, the right side versus the left side, and the dB values. But then also there's an equalizer, which I appreciate quite a bit because they give you a whole lot of different presets. Of course, I go with that rock because I want the boost with the bass and the treble and the mids is going to boost all of those values. But if you go to hip hop, it's of course going to boost the lows. If you go to jazz, it's going to boost those mids and those highs. You want to hear either the vocals or the hi-hats hitting. You want to hear all that good stuff. Of course, just regular bass booster, treble booster, vocal booster, whatever you want to do. So there's a lot of stuff you can change with the sound. I suggest you plug in your headset, you play around with this for about 5-10 minutes, find a setting you really like that matches, let's say the genre you're listening to and all that. But you can make this phone sound really good regardless of what headphones or earbuds you're using. So props to LG for that one. So earlier in the video when I swiped to the right, you may have saw that context awareness thing I was talking about on the LG Smart Bulletin. Well, I want to dive right into there and show you a bit more of it because it's pretty important and there's a lot of good stuff in there. And now when you go into the settings menu, you're going to see this sort of vague extensions settings menu. And so when you click in there, you're going to see a whole lot of good stuff that LG's crammed in. So there's that context awareness I was talking about. And what this is, it's all about contextual awareness, or having the phone being sort of aware of what's going on around it and where it is. So in here, let's say you're at home or away from home, you can set certain profiles for what you want the phone to be doing, or certain apps or sound settings you want whenever you're in one of these places. So let's say you're at home, I want to change my sound to vibrate because I don't need my volume going off, because I'll just have my phone, like, say, in my pocket or something, and there's not a lot of loud things going on around me, so I can just have it set to vibrate. Of course, I want to turn my Wi-Fi on. Same thing for when I'm away from home. So you'll give it your address, it'll realize that you're not near that location, and it's going to turn your Wi-Fi off, because I don't have Wi-Fi access wherever I'm out and about. Might as well turn the Wi-Fi off. And you can also set it to different things, like, so for when earphones are plugged in, I just have it set to open Spotify. When a Bluetooth device is connected, I can have it open Spotify. What's great is that, so when the Bluetooth, let's say use that one as an example, when the Bluetooth device is connected, I can have it connect specifically to my car, and then as soon as I'm in my car and it connects to Bluetooth, it's going to automatically open Android Auto. So there's a lot of nice little things that you can do, and it's just automatic, right? It's going to be contextually aware of what's going on. So nice little thing that LG built in there. Moving on down, back into the extensions menu again. A lot of good stuff in here. You've got that knock-on option. So this is a classic LG custom software thing they've been doing forever. The knock-on. Give the phone a little knock, turns off. Give the phone a little knock, turns back on. It's beautiful. We've had this for years now, so good to know. The setting for it is right in here under extensions. Also inside of this extension settings menu is the floating bar. Now, as you may have seen, I have this little button right here on the right side of my display. If you tap on that, this is called the floating bar. And as you could see, it is, you are able to enable it from the extensions menu. And also you can go down, click those three little dots and customize it a little bit more. You can arrange the different settings that it offers, such as shortcuts, screen capture, music player, and the shortcuts are also customizable as well. You can add different apps or actions within apps. So right now I've got like a memo, take a selfie, or customize the bar itself. So when that is enabled, again, you've got this little circular button here. You can drag it over anywhere you want on the display, or you can remove it by dragging it all the way up. But when it's there, you can just click on it. You can see I have a shortcut to Spotify where I can play my music or manage my tracks, but then you can just give it little swipes, and you can take screenshots from here. You can crop those screenshots, and like I said, you can quickly take a selfie, say, "Hey everybody, Tim here," and you could also make a GIF, which I thought was actually a very cool feature. So what you'll do, let's say you have a YouTube video going up, and you can just tap on the little GIF. You can crop it however you want to fit the video, drag it around, do all that. I've actually made a awesome little example for you guys. So if you go down here into the gallery, you'll see this is taken from our HTC U12 Plus video that went up this week. If you haven't watched it, do that. I'll put a link in the description for you. But yeah, just a GIF made from that video. You can do that on anything that's happening on your display. So definitely a nice little thing that LG added in there, of course. Now let's talk about the gaming aspects of the phone. So also inside of the extensions, you have a feature for gaming. So inside of gaming, let's say you're inside of a gaming application. In the navigation bar down here, you're going to see a little gaming tool icon. When you click on that, you can change different things. You can disable your alerts, take a break if you know, if you're really addicted to that game, you've been playing that slots game from Google Play, or you can adjust the graphics from straight within the game. So anytime you have a game installed on the device, it's going to pull up in this game graphics menu. I only have Galaxy of Heroes installed, so what you can do, you can adjust the actual resolution of the game that you see and the frame rate. So if you want to play with all that and you know, sort of manage the power consumption that a particular game is doing, you can definitely do that. Another tip I want to talk about is YouTube and utilizing this large display. Of course, the aspect ratio is a little different, so not a lot of media is out there being put out that fits, you know, the notch and this, what is it, 18.5 by 9, I believe, aspect ratio. So what you're going to see is sort of large black boxes. But what LG has done and what other OEMs are doing with these devices is embedding sort of a pinch to zoom feature inside of these videos, and it might actually just be a part of YouTube itself, but this is a nice little tip to know. So let's say you're watching a video, and whenever you enter full screen, you'll see that there are these large black bars here on the side. So what you can do is you can actually just pinch to zoom and zoom to fill. So now you have basically the video taking up the entire display, with exception to the notch part, of course. They don't want the notch digging into the video itself. But just to get out, you just pinch in or pinch out to zoom, and it's a nice little feature. You know, for a lot of the video games I watch, the video game streamers that I watch, it might cover up a little bit of the UI, but for the most part, it's a nice little function. Lastly, if you've ever caught one of my tips and tricks, this is something I talk about with phones, especially phones that have custom OEM skins. So if you go down into the system, and then on this phone at least, if you go down into the system and then about phone, and you should see software info. Now, if you tap on build number, like, you know, 5 to 10 times, you're going to see it count down to 0 to enable the developer settings. So when these developer settings are enabled, the developer options, back there in the system, there's a new option for developer options. So in here, there's a few things. If you're ever going to run ADB with this phone to, I don't know if they ever make custom ROMs for it or anything like that, or to, you know, flash your own OTA files from LG or something like that. You know, if you ever need ADB, you're going to have USB debugging enabled. So you will have to enable the developer options, enable that, so whenever you plug in USB, you've got USB debugging. Now, also, last part of this aspect I want to talk about are the animation scales. I've noticed on a lot of these phones, when this animation scale is set to 1 times on animator, transition, and window, things can seem a little bit slow. However, you can sort of speed things up a bit if you go to a half scale. So let's half scale everything, and then you'll just sort of notice like jumping in and out of apps and windows and transitions are just quicker. Now, part of it may be possibly a placebo effect, where things aren't actually quicker, they just appear quicker. But actually, when you're jumping in and the phone is taking its time to digest animations and opening up windows, it's nice just to cut through all that nonsense and just go straight into what it is you're trying to do. So if you ever want to try and speed up your phone, you can do that by having the animation scales. You can also turn off animations completely off if you just don't even need them. And you'll definitely notice like a little bit of a speed increase. It doesn't make your phone actually faster, it just makes it appear to be faster, which, you know, that's fine by me. So that is 20 plus tips and tricks for the LG G7. We've got our full review coming up and plenty more coverage to go. So if you have any questions, until then, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. And as always, I'm Tim for Droid Life. Peace.